Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the HR Live series. My name is Andrew, and tonight I have the pleasure of introducing you to Jewel Daniels, who is the CEO of Daniels Communications. And tonight we will be talking about disruptive leadership practices. This is a very, very important topic. So we will be giving you some time to get on. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to us on YouTube as well. And we will be here for at least 1 hour. We have so much in store for you. So grab your pens, grab your papers, and get ready to ask questions and just listen from the juggernaut learning and development expert, Jewel Daniels. All right. Good night, Jewel. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for that compliment.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, let us know that you are here. This is HR Live series where we discuss all things HR. And tonight we will be looking at disruptive leadership practices. Jewel Daniels will, in fact, introduce herself, tell us a little bit about her business, and after which we will talk about her new book, which is Three Sides of Every Crisis. And then later on, we delve deeper into the subject tonight. So, Jewel, talk to us. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your business.
Well, my story is a very interesting one. Brooklyn born, Indian girl. I grew up in New York, loved it so very much, and then found myself in the wonderful opportunity to go to HBCU, Hampton
Yes.
University. So many of you who are in the HBCU world understand what I'm talking about. And Andrew, life was such a unique experience that I wound up in South Korea, where I spent 2 years in graduate school before coming back to the States and working in corporate America, and then eventually starting my company, a global leadership development company, and then bouncing back here to Jamaica. I wanted to come home to the Caribbean. My father's side of the family is from the West Indies, St. Kitts, and Jamaica, and I wanted to come home and share the experiences, the skills that I learned and acquired while in the United States, and I want to live good, and Jamaica does that for me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, we're really good to have you back. You are, in fact, a gem, and it's a pleasure just always listening to you. So you recently launched your book, Three Sides to Every Crisis. Can you tell us a little bit about that book? Why you
Yes,
wrote it and what issue? Go ahead.
I wrote the book. So this book is actually my fourth work. I wrote two other books, and then I have a booklet out that's about solopreneurship. And I had
Yeah.
been wanting to write another piece since 2008 when I wrote my last piece, which is when the mortgage crisis happened. And I
Yeah.
just couldn't land on anything. Nothing was coming to me to write about. And so in late February, early March, I was on my way back from Washington, D.C. I had attended what we called Delta Days in the nation's capital, which is a program that my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, facilitates. Came back in March, and then boom, here comes COVID-19 coronavirus, or as my mother calls it, the Rona. And I started having these flashbacks of my experience as a young entrepreneur, running my business in the States and the challenges I faced when my company was pretty much at an 80-20 formula where 80% of our revenues represented 20% of our clients. And that really choked us. It was a very critical time. And I learned so much from that experience. And I started to feel like many other entrepreneurs, small businesses, solopreneurs,
Yeah.
probably would have similar experiences. So I prayed about it, and I started writing. Uh, God just kept giving it to me. I was just people ask me how did I write that book, and I say, that was only the whole, just guiding me through what
Yeah.
to write. And in this particular book, I wanted to do something a little different because what I was seeing was so much about businesses and the effect that the virus was having on companies.
Yes.
Very little about the person, other than the fact that they were losing their job. So I
Yeah.
decided to kind of tackle it in three parts, where the first two chapters would talk about how do you pivot, how do you change, positions in this tough climate when you're a business, and then
Yeah.
the center of it is for those who are working for an organization in leadership roles, HR professionals, to talk about how do you then use this incredible experience and let it propel you professionally, because you're going to walk away with a set of skills that nobody else has. I know it's hard. I'm not discounting that,
Yeah.
but you're going to have a new set of skills. You got new behaviors that you have to learn. And then I decided, even if you are running an organization or if you're working in an organization, if you're not taking good care of yourself, none of that matters.
Exactly. Hi, Shana. I see Shana Robinson saying hi. Hello. Welcome. She is one of our regulars. Nice to have you. If you're online, please say hi. Let us know. If you have any questions, you can also let us know. Interesting listening to why you started that book, Jewel, or wrote it, in fact. I was going through the snippets earlier on today, and I came across a sentence that really stood out to me, and I'll read it. In the pitched battle between perception and reality, perception always wins. Can you talk to us about perception versus reality, and why you thought it was very important to include that in the book?
Woo, you sure hit on something, didn't you? You know, the thought process with that is your perception feeds your reality. So
Yes.
how people see you, how they see a situation determines how they decide whether it's fact or fiction for them. And then that causes them to make a decision on how they're going to engage the environment and deal with the people around them. So I
Yes.
was really trying to say with this particular book, it's a crisis. It's the worst pandemic that we've ever seen. It's affecting people globally, politically, socially,
Yeah.
economically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you have to decide how you're going to deal with these circumstances. You have
Yeah.
to decide what you're going to do with the information that you're getting, what information you're going to access, actually,
Yeah.
and then determine what will be your reality. And that will
Yeah.
allow you to change those obstacles into opportunity.
Awesome. 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 Um, Another great gem that I got from the book: building a career versus a job. How does one do that? How does one build a career versus having a job? Talk to us about that.
You asked about that one because that comment gets me in trouble. Gets me in trouble. And it gets me in trouble because, again, it's about perception, how people
Yeah.
perceive their situation. And so I often say that the difference is when you are being thoughtful about your navigation plan.
Yes.
It's one thing for you to decide to take a job just because it's there, and then you get
Yeah.
stuck in it for 10 years, you lose the job, and you say, oh my goodness, I put 10 years of my life into this, and now what? Well, that's because you weren't building a career. You were
Yes.
working a job. You weren't,
Yes.
making decisions that really could feed you in the sense of being thoughtful about where will you be at those milestones in your life at 20, at 30, and then along the path, checking yourself to make sure that you are staying the course or you're pivoting or course correcting so that it becomes this amazing journey that turns into a career and not just a job, right?
Awesome.
Something that's
Yes.
feeling that's fueling you, that makes you feel good about how you got here and why you're there and why you put in those 40, 50, or 60 hours or whatever the case might be. That's what I meant by that.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank
So
you
you have
so much.
trouble.
Jo- we, we could go on and, and on and on. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, our topic for tonight, as I spoke to you earlier, is disruptive leadership practices. Jewel, talk to me about that. For decades, it has been believed that leaders, should provide a steady hand on the tiller. They they should guide their teams to consistent and predictable results. Um, you know, that's back
My.
then, but now we're talking about disruptive leadership. What is disruptive leadership, and how do you change the mindset of all those juggernauts, baby boomers who think that, listen, this is one process that we have and we shouldn't change? Now we're talking about disruptive leadership. What is disruptive leadership, first of all, and how can we change the mindset?
You know, I often say that people change for two reasons. It's either importance or it's pain.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, the pain of this pandemic has caused people to understand that disruption is going to be a regular part of our lives.
Yes. Yes.
This volatility, this uncertainty, the ambiguity of what we're dealing with. And so the next new normal means that we have to learn to live with disruption and adjust our sails according to the circumstances that we're faced with. And as those who are in leadership roles, it becomes your responsibility to always keep your finger on the pulse of what's
Yeah.
happening within this business environment so you know how to make the necessary adjustments. A lot of people talk about leadership, and we've been taught that you lead from behind, meaning that you kind of step back and you watch what's happening and you let other people kind of play in different roles and responsibilities. Other people
Yes.
say you lead from the front, right? And that because you have to have followers if you're going to be a
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah.
I say that leadership, you lead from the center because then you
Mm.
have a view of everything around you and you're able to access the people, the resources, the information. And when disruption happens, then you can easily pull and plug for what you need. And you know if you need to pull back or when you need to get ahead. So disruption is no, it's kind of like learning how to drive a car with a stick shift, which is probably the
Yeah.
most way to learn to drive because it's very difficult, right? It's
Yes.
knowing how to keep those gears given the disruptions that are occurring in your industry, in your environment, and what specifically needs to happen for you and your entity.
Yes. 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 Awesome. Awesome. Now, disruptive leaders do have a particular trait, a particular skill set. Um, can you talk to us about some traits you think a disruptive leader should have? And when I think about somebody who is disruptive, is somebody who is subscribing to the notion that they will constantly be evolving and they're not just subscribing to the norm of anything that's happening. They're very fluid, they're very responsive. So talk to us about some of the traits of a disruptive leader. So just in case we have somebody here that's watching who's thinking about probably stepping up the gear a little bit in terms of their leadership style, what are some traits?
So, disruptive leaders, as you said, I, I'll tell you this. I had a mentor, he's still my mentor, but I had a mentor years ago. His name is Charlie Brown. And he said something to me about leadership. And he said, the mind is like a parachute. It only works if
Uh-huh.
it's open.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And I never forgot that because disruptive leaders have the characteristics of keeping an open mind so that they can make themselves welcoming to the things that come. It doesn't mean that you have to accept everything, but it means that you have to consider everything. right? You have to consider the technical versus the soft, environments of how people engage, the technical skills people versus the soft skill people to create balance
Yeah,
for the within the
yeah,
environment. Disruptive leaders are also innovators.
yes,
This
yes,
time you truly have to innovate. We often say in the industry, sometimes you got to put some spaghetti in the pot, ball it, and when it's ready, you just throw it against the wall and let's see what sticks. And you've got to be innovative and you have to be a risk taker, right?
yes,
Disruption means that you've got to be willing to go into the building and fight the fire because disruption is happening and somebody has to get their hand around it. And so it may not be just your hand, but it may be you plus a set of hands that helps bring about clarity and vision. So disruptive leaders are also visionary.
yes,
They're able
yes,
to, assess the environment and and because they're keeping their finger on the pulse of what's happening, they're able to be able to give you a level of expertise that helps you understand what might come. And they're good listeners. So they're also people who want to make sure that when they make the call, especially when they have to make the tough call, that they
yeah,
have solicited the input of others before they make that call. So to me, those are some
yeah,
of the characteristics of a disruptive leader.
yes. And now that there is COVID, how important is um, disruptive leadership?
Oh,
Now that
that's
it's a crisis now.
if you want to get it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my.
And the last piece that I want to share about a disruptive leader is that they have to have high EQ. They have to have high, strong emotional intelligence
Yes,
because
yes.
that means that they understand the power of relationships.
Hmm.
I always say that relationships are the new currency of business. It's the way we get things done, and it's not about the friendship, the alliances, or the unfair practices. It's about
Yeah,
making sure that there's an inclusive mindset for how we're
yeah,
looking at next steps that we need to make in this environment. So in
yeah,
COVID, you know, and the reason why disruptive leadership skills are so important is, as you notice in this environment, Andrew, things change by the day.
yeah,
With the markets start to open back up, businesses start to open back up. Give it 3 or 4 days, and everything's closing down again.
yes.
And
Yes,
talking about having to pivot, this environment means it's stress testing people like never before.
yes, 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 yes. So disruptive leadership, as we've established it, it's critical for a time as this. Things are very fluid. Today, the COVID cases are down. Tomorrow they're up, and vice versa. So we're suggesting that disruptive leadership practices are best for this time and beyond, and that leadership managers should be adapting to change and becoming very fluid. I want you to talk to me about the positivity of having such leadership in an organization, and then we need to also look at the negatives, how it affects the company negatively when the leadership team is not disruptive,
Yeah, that's a great question. The positive side is that you have individuals who are looking at all the options, right? So they're trying to figure out things from the various angles, and they have the
Yeah,
ability, like we said, to pivot. The challenge
yeah,
comes in with the individuals who are the naysayers, the
yeah,
folks who like things the way they were, or
yeah,
often you have people say, well, if it's not broken, then why do we have to fix it? It's not a
yeah,
matter of it being broken, it's just a matter we want to do it better sometimes.
yes,
And people
yes,
struggle with that. They really struggle with that. And with 5 generations work in the workplace, from Gen Z to traditionalists, you've got to
yeah,
be a disruptive leader because you've got to know how to bring those generations together. And
yeah,
millennials are very unique body of individuals. I truly do. I hear so many bad things about them, but my experience, you know, I think they get it in a different kind of way. They're saying, I saw you work there for 20 years, 30 years and lose your job, or, the loyalty wasn't there. And the technology now allows them to have so many options. Things are at their fingertips, literally. So it's not that
Yes,
they're disloyal, disingenuous. They have options,
exactly. There are a
right?
lot of options. Yes, yes,
Right.
yes.
And
Sha-
they probably are going to be the first great leaders, disruptive leaders that we have, because they understand and they're comfortable plugging in and plugging out, doing 3 years, getting out, trying something different. They're
yeah,
comfortable with having three different skills that they practice. And I always use my daughter as an example. She's 28 and she's an anthropologist. She specializes in working with refugee and immigrant,
yeah,
populations. At the same time, she's a master chef. She can
yeah.
so I'm saying, that's on opposite ends of the spectrum. And they figured out how to make that work. And I know you understand that very well.
Yeah. I tell you. Exactly. So here's Shanna Robinson is saying we need more leaders in the industry that act outside of the norm and bring about change. And we could definitely agree on that. Now, let me drag your brain a little bit. Um, are there any local business owners here or entrepreneurs or leaders that you consider to be disruptive here in Jamaica?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew you asked me to name them, are you?
Can we hear one?
Oh my goodness. Well, this may not be fair, but it's true. I actually want to begin by using you as an example.
Oh.
Or objective. He did not pay me, any extras to stay there. But I think it's the great example because you're the example of how to deal with disruption. So here it
Yeah.
is, you're a recruiting tycoon. You've learned how to
Yeah.
leverage social media in a very unique way where you understand
Yeah.
which works best for you. So you leverage
Yeah.
LinkedIn very strongly, right, to get your
Yeah.
messaging out. You looked at the
Yeah.
fact that you built this career and you will pivot and say, let me make sure I facilitate programs and create partnerships so that I continue to understand what's happening with my target audience and with my premier and my preferred customer base, so that you're not just prescribing, because very very
Yeah.
often people are very prescriptive in their approach to business, but you're actually taking a pulse and understanding and asking questions and doing trial and error to figure out what works best and accepting that. And that's a hard piece for many people. It's the acceptance, you
Yeah.
know, that they wrestle with.
Mhm.
I think that's definitely one example. And I don't want to call out any particular names, but I will tell you
Yeah.
something else, something I've seen.
Yes.
Don't in Jamaica, in particularly, because of course this is where we live. I have fallen in love with the ingenuity that I've seen people practice just with masks. It's been amazing. It's been
Yes.
so. One example, I'll give you one. Mark Anthony. Mark Anthony is a very well-known designer here in Jamaica.
Yes.
He's based in
Yes.
Kingston. He does a lot of men's clothes. When the coronavirus hit, I think Mark Anthony had mask out, designer mask out within 48 hours. you know, it's amazing. And if you on the other side of the island, he said, no problem. I'll send him down by Knutsford, which is, the transportation company that circulates around the island. You place your order, you put your order on the bus. He had certain days in which that he did that. That was fabulous. And then he turned around and made masks to match your clothes.
Yes, I saw that.
But
I saw that.
if that's not disruptive leadership, and owning the environment, learning not to
Yeah.
fight so hard against what is, I, that's two great examples in my mind.
Yeah, yes, yes. It is believed and said that disruptive leaders thrive in uncertainty and chaos, So that's a perfect example. I love that example that you brought up about Mark Anthony. I saw it as well that he, as you've mentioned, was making to match clothing, and I'm like, oh my God,
It's amazing.
you know,
And
exactly.
I had
But
to buy some of those masks. So I bought some masks and I bought some for others. And actually today I had on some royal blue with my matching mask, and people kept complimenting me. I said, you see, it works.
exactly. All right. Shanna is saying, oh, okay. I think Shanna is giving me a compliment. Thank you very, very much, Shanna. All right. So moving on, Jewel, you mentioned something in your book that uh, hidden in every crisis is an opportunity. A lot of times people
Mm.
think that this crisis is just here to just throw everybody off their guards and off their tracks. Can you talk to us about the opportunity that's actually hidden in this crisis or any crisis for that matter?
Yeah. So, when you can change your mindset,
Yes,
you realize that a crisis also comes to serve almost as a reset. It's like a reset
yeah,
button. And
yeah,
it slowed everything down. And I actually found a sense of comfort in that because I was often asking, technology is changing things so fast. Is anybody thinking about the fact that we're on this train and nobody knows where it's going to stop, but we're moving at 1,000 miles a minute, and everybody's just moving, moving, moving. I want it faster. I want more, greater volume,
yeah,
higher customer demand. And it was just, evolving, evolving, and growing and growing. And just, oh my gosh, I said to myself, where are we going with this? So a crisis allows you to hit the reset button and consider what your options are. And I've seen
yes,
so many examples of that. So, as a leadership development expert, of course, a lot of what we do was not something that was in high demand during this particular season,
yeah,
meaning the training part of it. But what
yeah,
has been in high demand is the executive coaching
yeah,
and the career transition, right? The
yeah,
career transition.
yeah,
So we've had lots of conversations with people about when you look for a job, do you date your employer? They said, what are
yeah.
you talking about? Wait, no, that's against HR rules. I said, no, 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 no. It's your employer, not your boss.
Exactly.
Right? And really what I'm saying is when you date someone, you do your homework. You want to know as
Yeah,
much as you can about them so that you can make the right decision. So
exactly.
now the virus has allowed us to say if you have lost your job, and it's definitely an unfortunate situation because you've lost your rhythm, which you rely on. But now you can decide that you can move from the job to the career.
Yes,
Now you get to really assess what your leadership skills are because leadership is not a position, it's a behavior. And
yes, it
you
is.
talk about, how do you move forward? What decisions can I make? What
Yes,
opportunities exist to perhaps go into a different industry, the one that I've loved and I've dreamed about all my life, and oh, I wanted to start a business and I've never had a chance, and we always blame the job for getting in the way. That's not the case anymore.
yes,
Right?
yes,
So here comes the beautiful opportunity that unfolds right in front of your eyes. And so now you have to own it and you have to decide what you're going to do about it. So whether it's a
yes,
job or starting a business or reconnecting with a lost relative. One of the
yeah,
things this with Zoom, people were talking to their family members like never before, you
yes,
know? So
yes,
there are all kinds of opportunities to be found in a crisis, but you've got to be awake. The kids say stay woke,
yes,
right? So you have to stay awake and aware and wanting to
yes,
find something better for yourself.
yes. And that is profound, because the mindset will definitely allow us to succeed. You know, um, you know. So the mindset is very important. Shanna says, for this crisis, although I lost my job, it allows me to spend more quality time with my family, start to build my
Mm,
professional network on LinkedIn, pursue my freelancing business, and just slow down and think about my plans for the future. So it
mm,
may be bad, but it also brings some good. It also brought some good. And that's an excellent lesson, Shanna. Um, and a
yeah.
great way just to think about this crisis and approach this crisis as well.
And you
You
know
know?
what? The simplicity of this is if you have to make a choice about how you feel and what you want to do, you can make a choice to feel good about what is before you, or you can stay stuck and be miserable. And that's not going
Yeah,
to go, it's not going to help you make any
exactly.
progress, you know?
Yeah.
So choose the better option, tap into your friends, your resources, your mentors, your coaches, read the
Yeah.
publications. If you're going to be online, use it for more than playing a game and making posts on, Twitter and Instagram. Get some real goodness out of it that helps propel you to that next level.
Yes, yes, yes. Awesome, awesome stuff. You're dropping some gems, I call them. So you mentioned just a shift a little bit from the topic. In this time, it's coronavirus. As you've mentioned, a lot of people now are thinking about um, career transition, and Jamaicans, to my experience, don't necessarily find value in a career coach or somebody like yourself. Can you talk to us a little bit about why a coach like yourself would be important, especially in this time?
Sure. One of the things that a coach does is they walk alongside you and they help to challenge what you have established as your reality.
Yes.
And they will prick you in a way that they ask you some questions that broadens your thinking and helps you to
Yeah.
explore some places that you've never thought about before. For example, I was talking with someone just on Tuesday, and this person works in a captive. We have captives, call centers, BPOs. And so she was preparing for a job and she went straight into interviewing with came from a captive. She was interviewing with a call center. Yet everything she told me spoke to that she wanted to do something different. So I asked her, I said, have you been thoughtful about how you will achieve your dream if you have spent 15 years in a captive and now you're going into a very similar environment? When do you begin to make space for you?
Yeah.
And she stepped back and she said, I don't know. I said, well, you got a package. So the nice thing about Jamaica is, you get a package. Give yourself enough time to think,
Yes.
just to think about what your options are. And very often what happens with people is nothing wrong with going back into, the job market, but be thoughtful about your next steps. If you have skills that you require for 10 or 15 years, I asked her, I said, so is it that you like that industry? What is it that you love about it? Tell me two things it is giving you and one thing you have given it.
Yes.
And they were basic answers. So I used what I call the five whys. I asked her the question why 5 times. Because when you
Yeah.
ask that question, it drills down and drills down and drills down and drills down until you
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
And she said, well, there really isn't any other employer like this company. I said, really? So are you wanting me to believe that there's no other company in Jamaica that could pay you what you're earning at that last company? I said, okay, what's your evidence? She had no evidence. So we get in a
Exactly.
rut doing what comes easy to us because there's a sense of desperation and brokenness
Yeah.
because you've been separated from your job. So you want something quick, you want it fast, and you want it because not just to fill the vacancy, the spot of the money, but to fill the hurt. because you've been let go. And so you need to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
you need to be wanted, you need to be able to
yeah,
fit back in someplace. And that's okay, but make the right fit for you. This is a great time for people to say, well, maybe I can actually work in financial services. And
yeah,
then immediately the bank. And I said, there's more than banks in Jamaica. There are lots of different industries, but we haven't taken the time to explore how many different companies have come into our marketplace here in Jamaica. We have one of the highest performing stock exchanges in the world. So we got some
yes,
good businesses. You got some
yes,
options,
yeah, yes,
right?
yes,
Right?
yeah,
Jamaican
yeah.
women represent the largest number of women in leadership roles in the world. In
There
the
you go.
world. So right? So people are not doing their due diligence to really figure out what's going to work better for them versus the
Yes.
comfort of just getting back to what's familiar and what's known. And then they wake up and they're 40 years old, 45, 50, wondering, oh boy, I need to make a life plan. Well, that's kind of tough. Tough. Kind of tough.
Exactly. Awesome. It's just so refreshing listening to you. And I'm really hoping that those who are online and watching and listening are in fact taking notes, because this is really, really some great suggestions. A lot of people, and I use the word trapped, a lot of them are trapped in a 9 to 5, not happy, want to leave, but just trapped, don't know how to get out. You can talk to somebody like Jewel. So again, ladies and gentlemen, this is HR Conversations, and we are talking about disruptive leadership practices. And I have with me tonight Jewel Daniels, who is the CEO of Daniels Communications and the author of Three Sides of Every Crisis. That book is available on Amazon. And later on, Jewel will talk to us a little bit more before we go about that book. So another question that I have for you, back to disruptive leadership practices. Can a leader be developed as a disruptor?
Ooh, ask me that one more time. Hmm.
Can somebody be developed into becoming a disruptive leader?
I asked you to repeat that because I wanted people to hear it twice. Because it's a very important question. It's
Yes.
just the same question like people will ask, are leaders born or are they made?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think what disruption is teaching us is that we, for so long, have walked this path of either or instead of both.
Yes.
A leader can be born, a leader can be made. A
Yes.
person can learn disruptive characteristics and behaviors and how to become a disruptive leader if they so choose to make that level of investment. If they
Yes.
see the value and how it's going to be the with you, what's in it for what's in it for you, but also
Yeah.
what's in the organization. I often
Yes.
tell people when I'm training and they say, I, and I say, well, every month you get something. You either get it by direct deposit or you get this little piece of paper that's a rectangle. And in the
Yeah.
top left hand corner, it has a company's name, and the bottom right hand corner has somebody's signature, and then your information is in the middle, which means
Yes.
that it has to be a relationship. It's not just about what you're getting from the organization, it's about what you're giving to the organization. And so
Yes.
you
Yes.
become, a disruptive leader. And I think those are such critical skills to learn at this particular time because organizations are going to need so much of innovation and that
Yeah.
ability to say, it's not broken, but let's try something different so that
Yeah.
you're more prepared, right? So let's talk about an example of a
Yeah.
large company. Earlier, you asked me
Mhm.
about like, could I name, someone who's demonstrated
Yes.
disruptive
Yes.
leadership. I was thinking about, smaller businesses. But we
Yes.
also saw that, Andrew, with Caribbean Producers Jamaica.
Yes. Yes.
Company with them in Rainforest. Those who kind of probably had the 80-20 model or something close to it like mine
Yeah.
relied so heavily on their revenue coming from the hospitality industry that when all those, no one could ever imagine all the hotels closing at one time. Who could have ever imagined such a thing happening? And so they had all
Yeah.
this inventory, and they didn't have shoes, they didn't have pillows, they had food. That's really
That's true. Yes.
water that they had to move. And
Yes.
CPJ was the first to come on the market with the bag idea. And they said, you know what?
Yeah.
Drop the price, bundle the goods, put them in a bag, 1, 2, 3 step. Place
Exactly.
your
Yeah.
drive up, pay your money, get your bag, toot toot, and drive on. That's disruptive leadership. That's
Yeah.
taking That's being innovative. That's taking the spaghetti and throwing it against the wall and see what works. So we're going to need so much more of that because this is not the last disruption.
Yes. 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 And they were quick. CPJ, they were very quick as well, because I'm pretty sure if they did move that fast, people would have figured their way out, and probably somebody else would have come up with that idea, and they would have, you know, lost
Yeah,
out on such a great deal, you know?
absolutely. So that's also something I talk about in the book, and it's called Blue Ocean, Red Ocean, and Fast Second strategy. So in
Yeah,
Blue Ocean, companies compete in blue. Blue Ocean means clear. Lots
yeah,
of clear
yeah,
ability, a lot of competition. So you come into the marketplace and you're the first one out there. So you're the
yeah,
leader of what's happening. Red
yeah,
Ocean means there's a lot of competition and there's a blood sport. You got to get in there,
yeah,
and fight your way through.
yeah, yes,
In fact, it means you sit back and you let the people who are the first, the innovators, the folks who are going into the shark infested waters, and you sit back and you watch and you decide to innovate and enter the market by learning from what they've done, the
yes,
good and the not so good of what
yes,
they've done. So Uber came into the marketplace, as an innovator, Blue
yes,
Ocean strategy. And
yes.
then we had the next company, what is it called? The other transportation company.
Lift, lift,
So Lyft was a fast second. They
yes,
learned from Uber, right?
yes,
But
yes,
then Uber decided that it wanted to enter the food delivery market and they created Uber Eats.
yes,
And that was their red ocean strategy because there were so many others in the marketplace and they lost a lot of money.
yes,
there wasn't
yes,
any money on Uber Eats. And then what happened? Coronavirus. So they're probably doing a little bit better now. But
yes,
that disruptive leadership is what happens when you have people within the organization that are willing to stress test what is prevalent, in the process of building, sustaining, and growing a business. And
yes.
when you learn those skills, you take those anywhere you go. I mean, I think anyone who has the fact that they've been working full time throughout this coronavirus, that's very nice to put on your CV because it's a skill set like none other. So you just need to figure out what you're doing while you're in it.
Exactly. Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about disruptive leadership practices. Awesome. Awesome. This is so needed for those small businesses, large businesses, because the time is calling for such leadership. And I have with me Jewel Daniels, who is the CEO of Daniels Communications. For those who are listening and thinking about entering the leadership race, if there is even such a race, what advice would you give to those watching now about becoming a leader?
Mm, mm. What advice would I give?
And I know this is far
Well,
from the topic.
that's one of those really big questions because leadership is such a it's a dress rehearsal where you have to change outfits often,
Ah,
right? Because
wow.
yeah, because everyone
Hold on,
has
I need
their
to say that. I need to say that again. Leadership is like a dress rehearsal where you're changing outfits often. Viewers, did
yes.
you hear that? You better jot this down. The outfits have got to be changing constantly. Perfect. Awesome. I love it.
And it's true. And what I mean by that is people often think that they're selling out, right? When they
Yes.
have to change their behaviors or submitting themselves or they're usurping their power in some kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, that is the most impractical way to think because there are all different types of people within the environment in which you love, whether it be in your household or at your workplace. And
Yeah.
when you are dealing with people with an objective of giving them what they need and getting what you need, you have to change your outfit.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that the whole of you disappears because we all have our preferences. And especially in our culture, we're a telling culture. We want to tell it like it is and just keep it moving. Well, people don't pay you for that. People don't pay you to smack them up with words. There's a level of professionalism and
Yes.
business acumen that requires you to say it in a way that's productive and constructive so that
Yeah.
there's a win-win. And win-win means sometimes it's a 70-30, a 60-40, a 90-10. And so when
Yes.
you change outfits, it means that if I know that I can talk to you straight and I can give you, you take it straight, you don't have to have a whole lot of chase and sweetener, well, then that's
Yeah.
okay. There are other people in which I have to adjust my tone and be more thoughtful about my word usage and my
Yeah.
approach,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I was a younger woman, I'm 52 now, but when I was younger in my 20s and I was working in New York, I had a manager. I learned that I could not have a fruitful conversation with her until she had her second cup of coffee, you know. And that didn't make any sense to me because when you're young, you're saying, oh, this is a leader, this person is in this role, they make this much money. Well, people get promoted most times because they're good at doing something, not because they're good at managing people. And,
Yes.
that not because they can lead, that's a skill that you have to acquire over a period of time. A person who's a
Yeah.
master chef, you can be a sous chef, but when you run the kitchen, that's a very stressful environment. Have you ever walked into a kitchen or stood on the side and watched when they're trying to bring that food out? It's a mess. So running that is like an orchestra. You've got to know how to make sure that the violin is tuned properly and the drums know when to hit. So you change outfits in order to make sure that everyone feels like they are part of this process. Doesn't mean that
Yeah.
everyone gets to say, and that's where we get
Yes.
confused.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. We have to constantly be changing outfits. And I subscribe to that thought quite a lot because I've seen a lot of um wannabes, they want to be promoted, they want to be you know to move to that next level, but they're not willing to change the outfit and to
Yeah.
change it constantly. So you have to subscribe to the notion that it's not one size fit all. You have
Mhm.
to, really equip your mind to constantly change and evolve.
Yeah.
And leadership is no longer static, where you, as we'd say in Jamaica, a straight jacket. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. You're
awesome.
so
I'm
right about
enjoying
this.
this. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, so sorry.
No, go ahead, Joel. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying that so often people want to occupy leadership roles for the status and the money that comes with it, but then they don't want
Yes,
the heat and the stress
yes,
that comes with it.
yes,
But that's part of the bargain. That's why you have the bigger title and the bigger paycheck. So my advice to people when they want to take on a leadership role is to first do a deep dive assessment of who they are and how they engage with the world.
yes,
And to understand that leadership, great leadership, is about
yes,
building the next leader. And so that means
yeah,
sometimes humble yourself and pull back. I'm also president of the local chapter. This is called the Jamaica Alumni Chapter. It's the local chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority.
Yes.
And it's an organization of predominantly African American college educated women, high
Mhm.
performers, doctors, lawyers, educators, seamstress, you name it, every industry.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all of them have something of value to bring to the table. And
Yes.
sometimes, even when I know I have the answer, I'm quiet,
Yes.
right? Because you've got to make space for other people to contribute and feel
Yeah.
like, they're being heard and they're valued. And the other thing that comes from being quiet is you learn.
Yes. Yes.
And so leaders have to be willing to give and think and be quiet and listen and learn. Learn
Yes.
from others because it improves you as much as it improves them.
Yes. You know, if I can remember quite clearly, I read something today or yesterday that knowledge is speaking, but silence is wisdom. I'm not sure where I saw it or where I saw it. So just to agree with what you're saying, and we have to know when to step back and when to give people an opportunity. Not because you have the answer, you should always be just, you know, putting your answers out there. Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome, great.
When you
So
think about it, if you think about when you were growing up, and old people, I think about my grandmother who didn't even have a high school education. But those folks had so much wisdom. And a lot of the lessons that have guided me came from her and my mother. You remember that our grandparents would say, the Lord gave you two ears and one mouth for a reason. So you listen twice as much as you talk.
yeah, yeah,
So we've parlayed that over time into some more fancy, expressions and we made it, we've dressed it up some, but that's exactly where that comes from.
exactly, exactly. Awesome, awesome. So I have another question for you, and I'm merging this with recruitment a little bit. How do you think disruptive leadership affects employer branding?
Ooh,
So if
oh,
the
that's a
CEO is,
no, I'm listening. That's
if
a
the
great question.
yes, if, if the CEO is out there and very popular, and the reason for that is that I take Richard Branson as an example.
Mhm.
you know and
Yeah,
based on just him being out there, I when he came out with the cruise line, Virgin Cruises, the so many other cruise ship companies, they were losing employees. People were so excited to go work for Virgin. um, and I think one of the reasons was because of how we perceived him, people perceived him. It affected the employer brand so much in a positive way. So talk to me about that a little.
he's he's a very unique character. So he also had a line of hotels that he brought to the
Yeah,
marketplace.
yeah,
And Richard Branson has the Branson Entrepreneur Center, the Branson Center for Entrepreneurship here in Jamaica, and he has others in other
yeah,
locations, right? Because he gets
yes,
it.
yes,
I think disruptive leadership is going to affect and is affecting organizations and their leadership in such a way that leading from behind the mahogany desk is no longer
yes,
enough.
yes,
It's not enough. I think that people want, especially because the next generation that is going to propel us forward is the millennial generation. They don't connect with that mahogany desk, right?
yeah,
Connect with the name that's just on a piece of paper. Companies have to be more purpose driven in what they do. They've got to be
yeah,
able to extend value beyond, just offering a product.
Yes.
People want to see them be good corporate citizens. They want to see
Yeah.
them impact and affect the community because we now have come to really, really understand the power of our dollar. If you want my
Yes.
money, I'm not just buying your soft drink because it tastes good to my palate. I'm buying it because your organization also is showing up in my community and helping seniors learn how to utilize
Yeah.
technology past their fear of going in banks and getting online, right?
Yes.
You're helping
Yes.
the Montego Bay Home for Girls and E for Life by providing grants for those young at-risk, high-risk girls or those young girls and women living with HIV and AIDS and showing them that they can still have a vital role in the community. So
Yes.
disruption means that we are turning business on its head and now allowing companies to hold us hostage and make us believe that the only thing they owe us is a good product and somewhat good service.
Yes. Yes. Shanna Robinson is saying that the recruiters should become more disruptive leaders, as well as most times they employ based of what is on paper and not passion, drive, and attitude. What
Oh,
say you?
I'm loving her.
Ah, yes, there you go. And Petra, welcome, Petra. Petra's here. Petra is saying, interesting. Like the part about defining your character. Welcome,
Yeah,
Petra.
I think
And go ahead.
no, it's just Shanna is just brilliant. I don't know where she is, but I need to find her. Somebody needs to hire her. So if there are any HR people on this woman is bright because she's right. It's
Yes,
recruiters and it's the HR managers and directors. They've got to think. We often said think outside the box, but even that's not enough anymore. Because outside the box means that you may have landed somewhere just outside, and you pick up a little something. But disruption means that you're pushing the envelope to bring something to the table that's going to extend the experience of the employee and
yes,
extend the brand presence of the organization. So recruiters have to be thoughtful about, you get all these resumes. And I will tell you this quick story. When I was coming up in my career, I never
yes.
forget sitting on a panel when I was an editor at a newspaper and we were trying to figure out who we were going to hire as the next journalist to join the team.
Uh-huh.
And what companies did, I don't know if they still do this at this time, the first thing you do is find reasons to eliminate applicants. So typos, the resume wasn't set up a kind of way, and we would just drop them in the garbage can, not even thinking about the fact that we could have really dismissed an excellent candidate over something so
Yeah.
really and superfluous.
Yes, yes.
So I think recruiters have to be more thoughtful about even the questions they ask when they are
Mm,
recruiting candidates. Because I mean, they can. You can kind of go to sleep, wake up, and halfway answer them because they really don't represent a whole lot of thoughtfulness that
yes,
connects what the needs of the business is and connects the culture, the corporate culture, to the candidate.
yes,
You know what I mean?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
And
I think they have to be more creative in even how they recruit. They've got to do things differently.
yes, because it's very competitive now, and what will happen as it is now, more than 160,000 Jamaicans have been laid off. As soon as the market has, becomes better, it's going to be a floodgate of candidates. So recruiters now will have to employ different strategies to attract the ideal candidate. And in fact, I always say an interview is two sides. It's 360. So the candidate should be asking the recruiter questions. And the
Right.
recruiter, there are times when candidates ask certain questions, and we're going off in another field, but there are times when the candidate would have asked certain questions. The recruiter would have felt a way that, listen, and I've seen it happen where I'm doing an interview. I'm the one who should be asking you a question. Maybe it could be that they feel threatened. But that is of the past. That has changed. We're in a different age now. And
Yes.
so recruiters need to bring passion and humanness. It's all about showing up as humans. And
I love that.
yes, we need to show up as humans. And I think that's a big challenge in HR. That's a big challenge in the recruitment industry. Not showing
I
up as
do,
humans.
because I also think that HR practitioners, especially those in leadership roles, have to work more aggressively or assertively, should I say, to understand what's happening in industries and in environments outside of Jamaica, so that we are ahead of the game and we're not always
Yes,
playing catch up. So a practice in a lot of organizations is that they use affinity groups, right, within the
yeah,
group, within their organization. And I remember when the interviewing process just has gotten so out of hand. I remember interviewing for a position and it was a 3-day interview. Are you kidding me? You're asking for three 3 days. And on one of the days, I went in at 10 and I left at 5:30. And I was appalled. I could not believe it.
yeah,
I felt like they were so inconsiderate of me. And then when
yeah.
of course I voiced my concern, but that's because I had done this at a different season of my life. But when you're
Yeah.
talking about people who are younger, they're afraid to ask questions. And that's
Exactly.
something,
Yes.
yeah, we've been talking about during my coaching sessions. It is, how do I ask questions? How do I negotiate? If they can't, I
Mm.
always say, don't leave anything on the table. If they can't
Mhm.
give you all the money you want, what can they give you in place of the money? Can they pay for your
Yeah,
education or certification?
yeah,
And
yeah.
recruiters thinking that way, so that they're armed and ready to bring things to the table so they can pull in the right candidates, because money is not always the decision maker. People say that.
Exactly.
People
Yes,
people go
yes.
for money. Well, yes, that's part of it, but people stay in bad jobs and they don't get paid well, so it can't be the money.
That's true. Awesome, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about disruptive leadership practices, and we touched a little bit on recruitment. It has been an awesome time talking with Jewel Daniels of Daniels Communications. She is the author of Three Sides of Every Crisis. The book can be found on Amazon. We are going to be wrapping up, but tell us a little bit. Leave us a gem before we go, to my listeners, my viewers, as well as where they can find you and your favorite thing about writing the book. Mm. Yeah,
What a
go ahead.
wonderful question. So they can find me at jeweldaniels.net. That's my personal branding website, but also my company, which is a global leadership development company, Daniels Communications Global, and that's dcleadershiptraining.com. And
Yeah,
the thing I loved most when I was writing this book was I felt like I was on a mission to really help and empower people by putting as much information, in this book as I possibly could. And then I said to myself, well, a lot of people don't read. So doing things like this and doing webinars, that are an extension of the book, means that
yeah,
I can deliver the information right to their fingertips. So I
yeah,
love the process of research. I mean, I'm a bookworm. So a lot of people
yeah,
think that I'm an extrovert, but I'm not a high extrovert. I'm just above the bubble of an introvert. So even during this COVID season, being home was okay for me. I didn't, freak out completely where, like introverts, they
yeah,
can,
yeah,
being on lockdown. But I love the process of researching and being introspective and challenging myself. And when I was done with the book, looking at Three Sides of Every Crisis and saying, so where do you show up, Julie?
yeah,
How are you pivoting? What are
yeah,
you doing differently? How are
yeah.
you practicing disruptive leadership? Because I feel like when you offer something to the world, you better show up and demonstrate it to the best of your ability yourself.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. And what a point to leave us on, ladies and gentlemen. It has been an awesome time talking with Jewel Daniels and Shanna. Let's see what Shanna is saying before we go. Yes, sometimes you are called for so many interviews, and then you think you actually have a chance, and then you really don't. The recruiters and HR practitioners should at least send an email and or make a call and let you know you are successful. And that is so true. And that is called, Shanna, ghosted. I call that ghosting. And we as professionals, HR professionals, we ghost people all the time. We ghost them. And I can tell you that we may not be able to reach everyone, but for those who made it to the interview, at least they deserve an opportunity and a chance to know that, listen, I didn't make it. We're not moving forward with you, and even why, you know. So you are in fact correct, Shana, and we're here for you. If you need support, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Jewel at any time. Jewel, it has been a pleasure. Has been a pleasure. I really enjoy this conversation, and we could go for another hour. I can bet you on that. But we're going to leave them at this. Ladies and
It's been,
gentlemen, thank you. Go ahead, Jewel.
I said it's been wonderful. You have such a brilliant mind. The questions that you ask, I have to really. That's why people have to hang around people like you because it keeps them on their toes like they're a ballerina.
I learn a lot from you as well. You have so much knowledge to share and experience, and that's what it's about. So thank you once again for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, catch us next week at 7 p.m. for the HR Conversation Live series. Thank you very much, Joel, Shanna, Petra, and everybody else that has joined us. See you next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.